what's the one piece of career advice you wish someone had given you when you were starting out?
Well, so I mean, I thought about this a little bit in advance, and I think the main thing is that I tend to look back on my early career as missing out on the opportunity to ask questions, right? If I could go back to my 18-year-old self when I first sort of started work out of school, it would be, don't be worried about asking questions. Don't, especially if you've got an idea about how something could be fixed, but you're worried that maybe someone might think that that's maybe naive or something like that. There's nothing wrong with those things, right? So yes, if I could make any sort of really big thing to assert for people, ask questions. Doesn't matter what your background is, even if you're in a room of people that you think are the most expert and longest career people you've ever met. Ask the questions. And if you've got an acronym that comes up, especially in the tech world, right? If you don't know what it means, or if you're not sure if it's applied to the thing you think it means, then ask.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Especially in the early days of your career, that knowledge that you can build from just being inquisitive and I suppose not being afraid to ask the questions is half the battle in that situation, isn't it?
I think often people might be a little worried about offending folks when they ask questions. I think sometimes that can be it. And I think so. There is a way to ask the question. You can. I mean, I often, and maybe it's just the way I work. I often say things like, "Hey, look, don't want to be the one who asked the really stupid question here," or but I'm gonna, or something like that, right? And generally speaking, people prefer that. I think they prefer it than used to walk out of the room and they must wonder sometimes, hey, I use this acronym. I'm sure he wouldn't know what that meant, right? Which is what's probably going to be in their mind, right?
All of a sudden you're jumping on Google and trying to define acronyms for the rest of your afternoon. Not an ideal use of time. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I've done that before in a meeting and actually ended up with like an acronym for something in the cooking world instead of in the in the banking world or something. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, definitely fallen foul of that myself, to be fair. Happened on a few occasions, more than I'd like to admit to. Can you share a pivotal moment in your career journey that made a significant impact?
Yes, it was actually some advice I got from a gentleman who was retiring. In my early days, I worked in the engineering industry. It was like, well, learning. I was learning my way around. I had jobs in lots of different places, always technology based. But it was something he said to me that really stuck in there. It was embrace what you're uncomfortable with, right? And I thought that was a really interesting, and at the time I maybe didn't really fully understand that until I found myself later on in my career in more and more situations where I felt, oh, I don't really want to stand in front of this audience of 200 people and do a talk, or oh my God, what if they all think I'm really stupid, right? Or something, or something. And actually, but I have learned it's get yourself into those uncomfortable situations, because actually it's the best way to develop and learn. What's the worst that can happen? The other thing is I find, well, actually, that's probably not a good question to ask yourself before you do it. But the other thing I find sometimes is that if you're in a situation, especially if it's a public talking session or on stage in some way, try to watch somebody else do it first, because you can always go, well, hey, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And that's that extra thing you might need. So yeah, that was it. Embrace what you're uncomfortable with, which in my case was doing, public stuff or big sessions with people. I used to find that a real daunting thought. And I still do, but at least I know I've done it before now.
Yeah, definitely. You can build on that experience. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have to do quite a lot of public speaking, and it's not something, especially when I started out, was easy to do, but the gains and the wins and the benefits from it and what you can actually explore through your career from doing it, it's just one example of it, isn't it? Pushing yourself out there, and the benefits really outweigh that little bit of nervousness and uncomfortableness, because I think it opens up a whole new avenues for you within your career as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's push yourself, right? Always, right? Yeah, definitely.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what's your go-to strategy to overcome them?
Well, so I'm sure lots of people will answer these in much more defined ways, and there's loads of different methodologies out there for coping with these kinds of things, and you can read books on all of those things. But generally speaking, I always start by thinking about, well, first of all, I'm always a glass half full person. You have to make sure you get that one right. It's good. But so that basically means whenever someone presents me with something challenging, something difficult, or a setback of some kind that has occurred due to some effort, I think about it from a perspective of, okay, well, what can we learn from it? What can we use this for to help us do it better next time? What can we take from what maybe didn't work, elements of it, and use again? So I always think of it that way. And a really good example is if there's something really emotional that you're attached to that's failed and there's a real setback in some way, definitely never send the email until you've gone off and slept on it, right?
Yeah.
That emotional email that, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. You just type it in and then you send it and you think, probably should have. One guy I worked with actually gave me some advice once. In some of the tools, you can put a delay on your email send, right? And you can leave them to wait for a few hours. And sometimes, you just need to go and talk with somebody else first before you send that email, even if it's not someone who can give you direct advice. So, setbacks for me, I always try and think of the positives, and I try to look at it. If there's other people involved in the setback, I try to look at it from what's their perspective and why is it a setback? Why have they maybe blocked that happening? You've got to try and be empathetic to those things, right?
Yeah.
So.